Well, and I used and you know, Jax, you're absolutely right. And I was like, come on, you big dummy.
Have you noticed how Caitlin Clark's biggest critics suddenly went quiet as she continued breaking WNBA records for months? Cheryl Swoopes was at the forefront, making inaccurate claims about Clark's age, shot selection, and historic achievements. Now, Cheryl Miller is setting the record straight, addressing every false narrative.
Caitlin Clark and Fever fans didn't already love Cheryl Miller. They're going to love her even more now after she was on All the Smoke and wanted smoke with any Caitlin Clark.
When Cheryl Miller called out critics on the All the Smoke podcast, she wasn't just defending Caitlin Clark. She was revealing a pattern that has followed Clark since she entered the spotlight. The most surprising part? Clark's presence is making everyone wealthier, even those trying to bring her down. This is no longer just about basketball.
It's kind of funny. Nancy Lieberman, Cheryl Miller, both have all the respect in the world for Caitlin Clark and can tell what she's doing for not only women's sports, women's basketball, but women's sport.
Have you noticed the growing tension in women's basketball lately? Some of the game's biggest legends seem determined to criticize Caitlin Clark from the moment she stepped into the spotlight. But no one, and I mean no one, has been more consistently vocal than Cheryl Swoopes.
And I'm talking about the Indiana Fever, and I had to get on, somebody we both have incredible respect for, in Sheryl Swoopes. You're a champion on every level, one of the greatest players in WNBA history. Because I said, how do you mention the Indiana Fever and all of these other players, and you don't mention Caitlin Clark? And then all of a sudden, she gets on me and calls me a coward and all of this other.
What feels like a calculated campaign, let's take a step back and examine what's been happening, because this wasn't just a one-time misstep or an isolated opinion. Swoopes has led what seems like a deliberate campaign against Clark, starting long before she even declared for the WNBA draft.
There was this quote by Cheryl that said, Caitlin was, 25 years old. She was, however old, 24 years old. She was a fifth-year senior. Right. She was taking 40 shots a game. Her records were illegitimate.
One of the most absurd claims Swoopes made was that Clark was essentially a 25-year-old competing against 20-year-olds in college. That's simply not true. Clark was 22 during her senior year, which is completely standard for a college athlete. When confronted about this blatant misrepresentation, Swoopes tried to backtrack, insisting she was using hyperbole related to COVID eligibility rules. But let's be honest, that wasn't hyperbole.
Clark right now probably takes about 40 shots a game. To have a 25-year-old playing against a 20-year-old, you should be killing.
The criticism only got more bizarre from there. Swoopes went on to claim that Clark was taking an outrageous 40 shots per game.
Just for Caitlin, but you asked me about Caitlin. If you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that player said.
Clark averaged 22.7 shots per game. And here's the interesting part. That's just 3 more shots than Swoopes herself averaged during her senior year. Talk about throwing stones from a glass house.
So if Kelsey Plum set that record in 4 years, well, Caitlin should have broke that record in 4 years. But because there's a COVID year, and then there's another year, you know what I mean? So she's already had an extra year to break that record. So is it truly a broken record?
As Clark neared the NCAA all-time scoring record, Swoopes changed her approach again, suggesting that Clark needed a 5th year to achieve what other greats did in 4. Once again, completely false. Clark broke the record in 4 years, just like those before her. What Swoopes conveniently ignored was that Clark actually chose not to use the extra COVID eligibility year that was available to her.
She's a senior, but I think her COVID year was last year or this year. I don't know.
If one is going to run with falsehoods such as these, at least know, okay? At least know how many years the person you are talking about has.
The pattern carried over into Clark's professional career. Swoopes confidently predicted that Clark wouldn't make much of an impact in the WNBA, setting the expectation that she would struggle at the pro level. And then what happened? Clark averaged 19.2 points and led the entire league with 8.4 assists per game in her rookie season. Suddenly, Swoopes went quiet about those predictions.
Said, You can say whatever you want. You can have your own opinion about anybody, but you do have to get the statistics right. I mean, facts matter. And if you just get ahead of this and just say, hey, I made a mistake on my numbers, then this thing is over and everybody respects you for your opinion.
One of the most revealing moments came when Swoopes appeared on Angel Reese's podcast. There, she continued to downplay Clark while insisting, I don't dislike her. It was a classic case of saying one thing while doing another. The contradiction was so obvious it was almost comical.
And, you might like Boston, I might like the Yankees. It's okay to have difference of opinion.
Things escalated to the point where Swoopes was actually removed from broadcasting a Fever game due to her comments about Clark. She was replaced by Nancy Lieberman, who didn't hesitate to call out the misinformation surrounding the rookie sensation.
You recently coached the WNBA All-Star game. You spent some time with Caitlin Clark.
Best coaching job ever.
Best coaching job ever.
Best coaching job ever.
Just when it seemed like Clark was completely surrounded by critics with nowhere to turn, the basketball gods sent in reinforcements. When Cheryl Miller walked onto the All the Smoke podcast, she wasn't just there to talk basketball. She came prepared to deliver the most genuine defense of Caitlin Clark we've seen from any basketball legend.
To be honest, because it needs to be said, I can relate to that young lady, and I felt for her. I know what it's like to be hated. I know what it's like to be a black woman and hated because of my color.
What makes Miller's perspective so powerful, unlike those critics throwing stones from the sidelines, is that she actually coached Clark during the 2024 WNBA All-Star Game. She saw the rookie's talent up close, witnessed her work ethic firsthand, and wasn't about to let the false narratives go unchallenged. Nonsense continue unchallenged,
I'm playing at a high level, but it's been a blessing just to watch the women grow and watch the women find their voices, use their platforms, and finally get paid.
Right.
That's been, if anything, the flowers for me is to see their achievement grow.
You recently coached the WNBA All-Star game. You spent some time with Caitlin Clark.
Best coaching job ever.
Best coaching job ever.
Best coaching job ever.
Being around Caitlin Clark, how was the experience for her? She's such a big star. I mean, the sky's the limit for her. To be around her, just talk about the type of person she is, how much she loves the game.
I'm going to be honest because it needs to be said. I can relate to that young lady, and I felt for her. I know what it's like to be hated. I know what it's like to be a black woman and hated because of my color.
Yeah.
I can't imagine this young lady, I don't want to use hate, but despised. And people just having, she brought some on herself a little bit because she's cocky for a good reason.
Confident.
And I love that about her.
You know that viral, come on, you big dummies moment that's been circulating everywhere? That was just Miller getting started. What followed was a masterclass in how a true legend stands up for an emerging star. With the authority that only comes from someone of her basketball stature, Miller systematically dismantled every false narrative surrounding Clark.
But to watch the dynamics and the media, they had their narrative. And I was pleased and proud to see the narrative wasn't.
But here's where Miller's takedown became even more impactful. She pointed out something Clark's critics conveniently ignore. This rookie isn't just excelling on the court. She's elevating the entire WNBA. Miller made it crystal clear that Clark's presence is benefiting everyone, even those trying to bring her down.
It's just been fascinating to watch these young ladies come up and now take the baton and take it to a different level.
The Hall of Famer revealed how she watched Clark navigate the immense pressure of being scrutinized from all sides during her rookie season. Imagine what it must feel like to have legends of the game seemingly united against you. Miller witnessed this isolation firsthand and became one of the few to offer Clark unwavering support.
Is she getting hyped? Yes. But she was in the backyard. She was putting in the same time, sometimes maybe more than you were.
Right.
I can't fault her for what she was. Look, as much as she was given, you can't tell me if that door would have swung the other way where she didn't live up to the hype.
Right.
Come on, folks are still waiting for her to fall.
Exactly.
Come on.
Yep.
So, with that being said, You big dummies, you getting paid now.
Right.
Everybody now has an opportunity to pull up their chair and have a